So far this morning, been having a wonderful conversation about family business. And every one of these Babson Connect Worldwide events, that is always the highlight of the event. But so I also like to talk to amazing women entrepreneurs. And so today, our conversation with an extraordinary woman entrepreneur is going to bridge that conversation about family business as well, because she is both. She is both a member of an extraordinary family business and an incredible entrepreneur in her own right. Today we're going to be talking with Roshni Nadar Malhotra, and it is my honor to have her with us. She is CEO and Executive Director of HCL Corporation, which is a $7 billion global enterprise headquartered in India. In her role with HCL, she's responsible for strategic decisions regarding the overall direction of the corporation, including governance structures, treasury, risk, portfolio management, and diversification plans. She is also a trustee of the Shiv Nadar Foundation, where she drives the organization's vision and strategy. Among her many philanthropic pursuits, Roshni led the foundation's effort to create and launch Vidyagayan, a radical initiative to educate and transform meritorious rural children from economically challenged backgrounds. 3 years ago, I had an opportunity to go with our global advisory board and visit Vidyagayan and to meet some of those extraordinary students. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation about that with Roshni as well. The initiative is a model of socioeconomic transformation for families, and as you know, Roshni is going to be honored this evening for her work with the social enterprise, but today we're going to start with a focus on talking about the other part of her life right now in her business. So please help me in welcoming to the stage Roshni.
I think so. We are on.
You are on.
I am on.
Thank you. Now we are both on.
Yes, we are.
Hello. Good to see you.
Thank you.
I am so grateful that you not only have accepted our Social Innovator Award tonight, but that you're willing to come here and talk to us a little bit about your involvement with your extraordinary family business, HCL, and all the different roles that you now play in that. And I was wondering if we could just begin today by you saying a little bit about HCL, all the things that it does, and what attracted you to coming back and being a part of that family business.
HCL is the HCL group, as you mentioned, is 7 billion in size. We have 115,000 employees spread across 32 countries. And just a little history about HCL. It was founded by my father in 1976 as an original garage startup. And it was the first time that a group of men got together and really built computers for India. It was a very interesting time. The economy was closed. Mrs. Gandhi was the Prime Minister. IBM was leaving the country, Coca-Cola was leaving the country, and there was a void which was created. And many years later, my father would tell me that the first year that HCL shipped its computer in India, at that time a very closed economy, was the same time that Apple shipped its first computer. So there was a little company in India creating computers the same time as the world was experiencing its own technological innovation. Since then, HCL's really grown. Today, we have 3 companies within the HCL group umbrella, the largest being HCL Technologies, which is a global IT services company. in applications, cloud services, infrastructure management, BPO across the world. Our largest market actually being North America and the second being Europe. We have HCL Infosystems, which is the Indian company in the group, and this is where we had originally started with, manufacturing of computers. Since then, we have stopped manufacturing computers, but we have perhaps one of the largest IT distribution networks in the country, and that's HCL Infosystems. And then a much newer company that we just launched 3-4 years ago was HCL Healthcare. And this has been incredible because it's really not looking at hospitals, but looking at primary health clinics across the New Delhi capital region and hopefully expanding much more into India. So that's HCL in a nutshell. And I'm the CEO of HCL Corporation, which is the promoter company, so to speak, or the family company. We're a very small company. It's just me, my parents, and my husband, so just 4 of us. And my story is interesting because after school in India, I decided to go to Northwestern in Chicago to do my undergrad. Decided to go as an economics major. Somewhere along the line, stopped doing economics and moved into radio, TV, and film. And after I graduated from Northwestern, I worked for 2 years at Sky News as a news producer in London. And I went back to business school, back to Northwestern, to the Kellogg School of Management. And what really attracted me to come back was not HCL as much, because by that time, HCL had already been in existence for 30 years. And I just felt if I returned, the kind of impact that I could do at the operating companies would be much more incremental in nature. So I returned to the holdco, which is HCL Corporation, and really started working at that point in the strategy for then the Shiv Nadar Foundation and what I was going to do. And it was quite interesting because ever since then, a lot of our initiatives and institutions were launched, but each was an entrepreneurial process in itself, and it was quite exciting.
So that's actually something that HCL is known for. It has somehow managed to maintain that entrepreneurial spirit,
Absolutely.
Beyond its founding. And as I understand it, entrepreneurial thinking is quite encouraged throughout the organization by the management. Can you talk a little bit about how you lead that?
Yeah, so we have a program at the management called Ideapreneurship. And that's really a way for employees to get together and come up with unique ideas, come up with unique solutions. And then we provide some sort of, not as much of a structured program, but incubation of those ideas and allow it to develop. So for example, HCL ComNet, which is part of HCL Technologies, really came out from this. And HCL was the first company to service the national stock exchange in the country, and we still do. And it was just a bunch of guys who got together and said that, it would be interesting to provide a solution for banks and the stock exchanges. And, now we do the entire infrastructure management for them. So we allow a lot of the employees to, create these little cohorts and let their creative imagination flow. And I guess it's also a function of the founders themselves being first-generation entrepreneurs. And that's really what keeps the engine going.
So we were speaking earlier, and you mentioned that you also have a role in HCL Technologies, a board position there, and that you chair their diversity initiative. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about how you've been thinking about how to bring more women into the leadership of technology companies? This is something that we struggle with in the US, but perhaps the situation might be even more dramatic in India.
So the situation is very dramatic in India. At our company as well, and the Indian IT industry is large, 27% of the workforce is women. but the 27% of the workforce, which is women, is of a certain leadership level and below. So at least when we talk about HCL, in the top 200 leaders at our own company, you know, such a big company, so global, we don't even have a single woman leader. And this was something which
The top 200 people.
Yeah, in the top 200 people out of 115,000.
And how many of those are in management right now? Out of the top 200, are they all in management?
They're all in management.
They're all in management,
yeah,
but
and
there are no
all,
women.
And there are no women, and they're all leaders. So they're delivery heads, sales heads, country heads. You know, in whether they're in Europe, whether they're in North America.
How
in
many
APAC.
employees do you have overall?
115,000.
115,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so this was something that we reflected upon. Around 2 years ago. It was also a very interesting time for HCL Technologies, which is our largest company in the group, because I became a director on the board. We have another director on the board, Robin Abrams, who was the head of Asia Pacific Apple many years ago, but she's our oldest serving director, and we just inducted a new woman director. So there are 3 women directors on the board, and the rest are men. And it was really a time for us to reflect that if, let's say, even in another decade, if we want to have a CEO at HCL Technologies, which would be a woman, what are the steps that we're going to have to take? So one of the things we did is we instituted the diversity committee, in which there's me, there's Robin, but the chairman of the committee is the chairman of the company, which is my father, because he really needs to drive this. And we've been running a lot of leadership programs which are specifically for women who are reporting to the top 200 managers in the company, to allow them some sort of mentoring for them to be able to come in, let's say, do personal development courses at some of the top universities all over the world, and also provide them flexible working hours, work at home hours. What's also interesting is how do we actually get women back after the age of 35 to 40? So what happens is they get married, and career's going fine, then family comes in, and that's when they leave. And we have to actually plug the gap of bringing them back into the system, and not really treat it as a lost time. So those are some of the strategies that we've been thinking of, and how do we want to bring those women back. So one of the interesting things that we've been doing over the last 1 year is every board meeting, every quarter, we break up the board into groups of two board members each, and each board member hosts 10 women leaders or 10 women employees who are your real stars for lunch. So we're starting by getting the board to actually meet who are these potential stars, yes. And we've been spending a lot of time with them, mentoring them personally. Each board member has a cohort of about 6 to 7 women that can email them whenever they want to, what's going on in the company, where are the opportunities for me, or anything.
That's a very interesting approach, because first of all, I can see from a managerial standpoint how useful it might be to have 7 or 8 people from throughout the corporation who are not at a level that you would normally speak to, giving you feedback on a regular basis. That's very valuable. So I think that they would have something some advantage to be gained
Absolutely.
from that. We also know from our own research at Babson about why women-owned companies are often not chosen to receive venture capital, is it's simply a function of the fact that men don't know them.
Yes.
And so you are more inclined to fund people you know and who you're comfortable with and who you can credential. So simply knowing people and creating those networks is very important.
So that's been really interesting, because our CEO is probably meeting a lot of these women for the first time as well. And it's been driven by the diversity committee, which we've said is a board operating committee. So we directly work with HR, we directly work with different managerial heads across the company. So the CEO is a part of it, but he sort of reports to it. so that he has a certain mandate.
Yeah. So this is an awkward question, perhaps, but if you are CEO of the corporation and you are a woman and there is such a dearth of women in the management, plus you are the daughter of the founder, this is a double challenge for you.
Absolutely.
How do you gain authority? How do you gain acceptance, legitimacy in that context?
It was really interesting. When I returned from business school, I'll be 36 now, but at that time I was 28. Within 6 months of returning, my father made me the CEO of HCL Corporation. Within 6 months. And I had, of course, I've grown up with HCL in my DNA, so to speak, because, I'm an only child and I've watched my father create it. But I was very overwhelmed at that particular point. And I asked him, I said, why did you make me the CEO? And obviously...
At 28.
At 28.
At 28.
And it's, the question you ask is not awkward anymore, because you could imagine at that time the media went to town with it. Yeah. And I also today in hindsight believe, I think the media went to town with it because I was a woman. If suppose a son was made a CEO at 28, nobody would even, it would just pass by. And I asked him, and he said, when I started HCL, I was the first generation entrepreneur, and times were very different. When I'm making you the CEO, your start point is very different. HCL is already so established. So there's a certain exposure that you need, and you need it really fast. And, we don't have the luxury of time, And in the last...
So it was really your father's vision and your father's confidence.
He said, we'll work top down. Mm-hmm. So after making me the CEO, I went on a rotational program where I spent a couple of weeks in each division, each institution, getting to know people. And it's been a beautiful privilege, because I've gotten to know so many people amazingly. I've built relationships amazingly. And I think somewhere along the line, I was also able to discover that maybe I had a certain skill set that they didn't have that I could bring to the table. And maybe they had a certain skill set that I could learn from as well.
And where do you think those skill sets came from? Were any of those skill sets gendered? For example, did you bring something to the table as a woman that you wouldn't have seen perhaps if you were a male manager in the same environment, or did you have different priorities?
I think one of the things that I was able to bring, and maybe this is where my different background kicked in, was a certain level of objectivity and a different point of view. So if I ask my father, did you always know that you would want me to join HCL? Yes. So I said, okay, but it's an IT company, so how come you weren't the typical Indian parent who said you must study engineering? Because that is what a lot of Indian parents encourage, and I think a lot of children who are part of the technology industry have gone through that process. And he was like, there was a certain amount of, I've been very uniquely raised with a lot of freedom and allowed to do pretty much what I wanted to do, but I think it shapes the way you think and the certain level of objectivity that you're able to bring. And really today, now that I'm part of the system and we're 8 to 10 years hence, I feel very comfortable. And I think, I believe, and I hope it's working so far, that my decision making is probably unique. And I think when you're anyway in an environment where there are lots of men, men lead with a certain bravado, and I think women lead with a certain tempered style. So it works well.
All right. You mentioned earlier that early on you had gotten involved with the Shiv Nadar Foundation, with the philanthropies. And you are a leader and an innovator, a paradigm-busting innovator in education, especially around creating social mobility and opportunity for those genuinely the poorest of the poor, throughout the country. Can you talk just a little bit tonight? We're going to hear more tonight about all of the incredible things that you're doing, but tell us right now, how did you decide that I want to make a change in the lives of these children?
It was a very interesting thought that we had. So if we just reflect, HCL is in is in a city of Noida, which is a metro adjoining Delhi, but Noida is in a state of Uttar Pradesh. Uttar Pradesh is the largest state in the country. It's 200 million in population. That makes it the 6th or 7th largest country in the world. We don't even have to look at India, which is 1 billion and over. And if you look at the history of India, almost 8 to 9 of our prime ministers have come from the state of Uttar Pradesh. So when we look at these two numbers, we sit back and we think that means there must be some sort of leadership which is ingrained in the state, in its legacy or in its history, because there are prime ministers coming from that state, yet it's 200 million, and it's the most backward, and it's the most poor. So when we thought about that, we said, okay, but what also happened is that historically, a lot of the leaders, Indian leaders all over the world, whether they're CEOs of companies or whether they're in the bureaucratic offices of the country, or they're leaders in art, in music, or whatever, they tend to come from elite institutions. So why don't we go about creating residential schools, leadership academies, to really find the best and the brightest students at the age of 10 and 11 who are rural, who are underprivileged, who come from the state of Uttar Pradesh. And it's been an amazing journey because we have an open examination system. All we do is put out an ad in the radio and in the newspaper.
And say how many people apply.
So last year we had 200,000 students that applied. That's 600 that's
Babson only has 7,200, so this is we're
we're
feeling very sad right now when we hear this. We want 200,000.
200,000 students that apply, all underprivileged, all highly meritorious. We have a 6-month selection process where we do 2 examinations, and then we actually physically visit their houses to make sure that they represent an income level which is below. And out of 200,000, every year we choose 200. So it's an amazing process. It's a purely private institution. We have not partnered with the government of Uttar Pradesh. And our first batch graduated last year. And I was telling Kerry that the topper of the batch, she went to a premier institution in Delhi, Lady Shri Ram College, pursuing psychology, which is their #1 program in the country. And the second girl got a scholarship, and she's at University of Massachusetts. And of course, there are lots of other students which have gone all over. But really, I think the stepping stone of building a great leader, at least in today's day and age, is they get a great education. And so at the Shiv Nadar Foundation, I think we very strongly believe that it's not in the breadth of our offering, but it's really in the depth of it. So if you look at the size of the foundation, at any given time, we're only touching maybe 10,000 students across the universities as well as the schools. We're not a foundation that wants to touch 1 million students. And I mean, a lot of people also criticize that with that much money spent, you could be touching so many more lives given India, the country. But you can't touch those many lives if you're trying to make a leader. So I think that's where we are.
So we are trying to make sure that some of those incredible young leaders look at Babson next year.
Absolutely.
As a college of choice. And you're actually beginning to try to instill innovation and entrepreneurship in the curriculum at Vidyagan.
Absolutely. So just to give you a profile, all the students that are at Vidyagan, and in the last 7 years since the school started, we've had 3 dropouts. And 2 were for medical reasons, and 1 child had to leave because her family migrated. But these are families with 100,000 rupees, Indian rupees or below. That's around $2,000 annual income and below. and so they're very, very underprivileged. Most of the parents are, not most, all the parents are uneducated, farmers or daily wage earners, and this is really the background of the children. But what's unique is that when they're coming to Vidyagyan, they're actually coming with a very rich legacy of very small-scale entrepreneurship. That's what their parents do on an everyday basis, whether they're farming, whether they're working in another small-time business in their village. They're all actually coming with a certain degree of exposure to entrepreneurship. They just call it livelihood. That's it.
I was so moved when I visited the school with the Global Advisory Board because you take students at their sixth grade level, and when they come to you, they're maybe 11, 12 years old, is this right? And when I spoke to them, some of them said that they had grown 4 and 5 inches in the first year that they were there because of the increase in nutrition that they had from the food, and everyone spoke so much about how much they appreciated just these very basic things like the clothes that you gave them and the food that they ate, and they loved the library. They showed us the books and they pointed to the books that they had read and that they wanted to read. There was a true love of learning. It was one of the most moving visits that I think we've had the privilege of seeing. So I know that we want to partner with you. We want to be a part of that incredible vision. Now, you also have schools that are urban schools. This is a rural school. Tell us about your urban efforts.
We have 3 schools in Delhi, and these are the Shiv Nadar schools. These are K through 12. If I may dare say, in a good spirit, but they are elite schools. They are schools within the city for the privileged. We charge a fee point. We don't make a profit, but we do make a surplus, and that is to be invested in the school. But they're really 3 schools, and they're progressive schools. And the reason I say they're progressive is because I went to one of the top schools in Delhi and in the country. I was the first batch, and so we did not have any seniors. And when we started these 3 schools, really, we looked at the curriculum and we said that there's a lot which is being done inside the classroom, but there's a lot more that we can do outside the classroom. And again, without having termed it entrepreneurship, but our curriculum is called the AHA. It's actually called the AHA curriculum. But it's only because the children go through so many moments of ahas, when they're outside the classroom and really getting their hands dirty in terms of whatever they're doing, and so there are lots of projects that take place, whether it's in music, whether it's in robotics, and there's a lot of time that children spend outside. And what's been amazing is the Shiv Nadar school, because it's K through 12, and our rural leadership academies, which are 6 through 12, and they both actually follow the same national curriculum. They're great partner schools. They're great sister schools. So, we do have, every year we have a program where like 20 to 30 of the urban cities, the urban schools, the kids actually come and stay at Vidyagyan for like 2-3 days. And we have exchange programs. Teachers are able to, take joint trainings together. And I think holistically it brings a really good balance to the foundation.
So yesterday we heard from Ramon Mendiola, who is sitting in the audience here, about how he came into his company and tried to transform it over the course of the last decade so that it incorporates both social enterprise concern for the environment and also maintaining and actually accelerating profitability all at the same time. So I see you as sitting over these extraordinary efforts, both in terms of being a very profitable company, but you also have this extraordinary, very innovative philanthropy piece. Have you thought about how those pieces influence each other, and will you ultimately try to pull them together in some way?
So the Shiv Nadar Foundation is really the family foundation, so we're going to keep it separate. But at HCL Technologies, I'm also the chairman of the CSR committee. So we actually have the HCL Foundation, and we do a lot of work, again, in the state of Uttar Pradesh. And one of the things that we've actually been working on, and we're doing this with our R&D lab, which is at HCL Technologies, is that what is the DNA of HCL? Over the years, because we're a technology company, what we've been able to really do is create solutions wherever we go. So when we look at, let's say, we pick up a village in, let's say, the state of Uttar Pradesh, what do we want to do there? So let's say we want to improve livelihoods. We want to improve the state of education. We want to improve the state of healthcare, which could be, prenatal healthcare, maternal care, as well as child mortality. We want to improve processes in agriculture. We want to create good nutrition and organic gardens. So one of the things that we've been doing with our R&D is that we've been working on solutions which will provide not only a result in terms of whatever the better output that we want in the village, but we'll create a source code. So it's almost like an IT approach of, we want to get the code right. So we'll create a source code, a model that works, and then we will go to the government of Uttar Pradesh. This is where we've been working with the government very closely, saying, okay, it's taken us 5 to 6 years, but it's like an incubation village, it's an incubation lab, we've got the model right, but we certainly can't do it statewide because we do not have that kind of funding, no matter how affluent we are.
So you serve as an incubator for good ideas for the government.
And then the government says, okay, I think it works, we will roll it out. And then we provide even the human expertise to be able to do. So there are a lot of employees working in that. So just for example, in one village, we have 300 people working.
Oh, really?
Just to make it work, because it must. That's the only way.
Well, I want to open this up now to the audience. I'm sure you have a lot of questions for Roshni. So can we get some microphones available to the audience? Any questions? My own. I just don't want to dominate the conversation. So, yes, right here, please. Aslam?
Thank you very much. It was extremely insightful and genuine and inspiring. Thank you. I just have a question. What would be your advice to fathers with a daughter who comes into the company? Thank you.
Oh my God, I have to advise my father now. I mean, I just know my personal relationship with my father, because again, I'm an only daughter, so he always treated me as girl, as daughter, son, everything. Even though we work in the same company and in the same office, I maybe see him once at work. I see him maybe once a week, once in 10 days. So I think it's a great privilege again to work with him but not see him, and so I think
we won't tell him that you said that.
It's okay. I only told a couple of hundred people.
Okay.
Right. But he would agree. I think space is extremely critical, and space is extremely critical, and I think there are moments that he allows me to exercise a certain judgment and authority. And it's very important for that to be seen, because I think one of the barriers of women just generally being leaders is acceptance. So how do you basically, literally, bulldoze that? You just make it as it is,
So his absence suggests confidence.
Absolutely.
And so you feel very comfortable in that way.
Absolutely.
That's great. Mohammed, a question from Mohammed Habib, who was on the stage last year at this time in Dubai talking about his multi-family, multi-generation family business. Can someone get a microphone to Mohammed Habib, please?
Roshni, really excited to hear your story.
Thank
You've
you.
done so much at such a young age. I mean, from both on the business side as well as the CSR and the philanthropy side. So I just want to know what comes next. What's your next 5-year vision? I wouldn't want to go beyond that right now.
My 5-year vision. Let's see, tomorrow I have to get home, then there's diaper change, then there's... but I actually... this is something that we talk about in the family, but I think in terms of where we are in terms of the foundation. So in the foundation, we have the 2 Vidyagyan Leadership Academies, we have the 3, Shiv Nadar schools, we have the Shiv Nadar University, the SSN College of Engineering in Chennai, and the Kiran Nadar Museum of Art. And in HCL, we have the HCL Group, HCL Technologies, HCL Healthcare, and HCL Infosystems. So it's
and you have 2 children.
and I do have 2 children.
Yes.
So it's a very actually the HCL group is also very unique because the number of institutions itself outweigh the number of family members. Like there are only 4 family members, which is myself, my husband, and my mother and my father. So what's really for the next 5 years is to just keep this going. I don't think there's scope to expand it any further, but really keep the engine going.
So any time there's a panel with 2 women on it, the obligatory question is about balance. Now, I personally don't think there is balance. I think there are choices.
Absolutely.
Maybe you have found a better way, and I'd love to hear about it. But what do you prioritize? What are the choices that you make that make all that? When you list that, that's overwhelming, right? That would be overwhelming for anyone. So a young family, that's even more overwhelming. How do you prioritize?
I agree with you. Firstly, there's nothing known as work-life balance. It's just life and choices. I do have the privilege to be able to, in many ways, work for myself. So, I can keep it flexible through the day. And I do take my children sometimes to work. They are very young still, so I can. And
How old are your kids?
my youngest one is 15 months, and my older one is 4.5. So he's starting big school, and I'm so excited. But I mean, really, there are days that I have to choose work. There are days where I have to choose family. But I make sure those are the only 2 choices I have. So we do not go out otherwise. Maybe once a month, and it's fine. And it's really each. I value my experience I have at work. I value my experiences I have with my children, and then and we like to travel. So I think you have to keep your choices within a certain spectrum to be able to manage it.
So limiting your choices and knowing where you find your happiness
Yes.
and fulfillment?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes, a question from Farid.
Ferit Şahenk from Istanbul, Turkey. I love the story. It's fantastic.
Thank you.
But more than that, I want to first congratulate your father. Not you secondly, but your husband. And thirdly, you. Congratulations.
Thank you. And he just happens to be a Babson alumni.
Super. I see you as a leader. I don't see you as a lady or a gentleman, as a leader, entrepreneur. And I think a lot of things are taught in life, especially about family businesses, succession and everything. I have been wandering around the last 24 hours in this lovely room talking to people. One thing that I haven't heard from that I had as an experience, I want to know if you went through this as well. When I got into the company, I didn't become the CEO immediately. But one thing happened, the internal politics of the company. Some group of professionals immediately started surrounding me. And they started talking bad about my father. I don't know, did this happen to you? If it happened, did you know how to deal with it?
You know, I'm very direct. There is no room for that. And the reason why I believe there is no room for that is that my father created a certain wealth, which is a substantial amount of wealth, and a certain legacy in his lifetime. And he's a first-generation entrepreneur, and I'm a first-generation inheritor. And if I'm inheriting that, and I choose to enjoy the luxuries of that, it comes as a package, as it is. And too bad if someone else likes it or doesn't like it. You know, for me, that's a very clear. So it's not like I'm necessarily choosing my father over anybody else. I'm choosing to respect and cherish the privilege that is bestowed upon me. And it's almost like these are the cards you're dealt, so deal with it, which is for everybody else as well.
Well said. In the back here, in the red, please. Or in the middle, I should say, in the red. Oh, okay.
Hi.
Thank you very much.
My name is Maria, and I'm from Venezuela. You talked a little bit earlier how you did not have a technology or an engineering degree, yet you are managing a technology company. So what advice do you give to those who are interested in technology, yet do not have a computer science or an engineering major, and want to compete with those that do have it?
You know, one of the things that my father told me, because I asked him exactly the same question when I came in. I said, oh my God, I don't know anything about technology and I don't know about IT. And he said, you know, domain knowledge is actually very highly rated. And the reason he said that is because the first board meeting I went into, I kid you not, the entire board meeting, there were all these, you know, like SAP and BAT and SOP and this and that, and the whole board meeting I kept wondering to myself that, oh my God, like what language are they speaking? But when you really shave off the facade, I think is very fundamental to any business, no matter it's technology or whatever it is, you know, is it strong on governance, you know? How is it in terms of its financial position, or how is it in terms of its strategy, and most importantly, who are the people who are actually executing and driving that? You know, and that remains the same whether you run a technology company or a shoe company or, you know, whatever you decide to run. So I think, and then of course, you know, one of the things that I've had the privilege of doing, at least in the last 6-7 years, is spending so much time in the company with a lot of people that you'll be surprised how quickly you start actually learning and picking up. And at least today, technology has changed so much, and it's all over. It's in the news, it's in the newspapers, it's, you know, it's in any journal that you read, that I think we're blessed to be in a time where access to information, and information in general, is so much that I would say we're at an easier place right now.
So you can catch up.
Absolutely.
You can catch up. Okay, I'm sorry, way back in the back. I apologize, I didn't see you before.
It's okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing your story with us. I was curious about how you handled disagreement, not only with your father, but maybe also with the other members of the family.
So, again, like I said, we're such a small family of just 4 people, and I'm sure there are many people in the audience who have much bigger families, and hence many people to deal with. We have had disagreements in the past, but it's really, it's interesting that sometimes we just, I think one of the things that my father's allowed me to do is that there are moments where we agree to disagree, and then allow me to make that mistake, if there is a mistake to be made. And I mean...
Is there a limit to the level of mistake he would let you make?
I'm sure in his head there is, but he hasn't expressed the same to me, which makes it very good, because it allows me actually, touch wood, in most cases then to make that measured decision, which so far has been okay. Yeah.
Right here, please.
Hi, my name is Nalumi, and I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story. My question to you is, if you could give yourself some advice, say 10, 15 years ago, what would it be, knowing what you know now?
When you were 28 and you came into the company, what would you have wanted to know?
Oh my God. I don't know. I don't live in the past. I don't know. It's, you know.
So what has come more easily in recent years? What has become more intuitive, more comfortable for you that maybe wasn't comfortable initially?
I think a lot of decision making as far as the family office is concerned, and as far as investments are concerned, I think that's become significantly easier, and I think it just comes with practice of making the right decisions and being the zone that you want to be in. And like I said, even though the business and the group is fairly vast and large, us as family members are so small that we actually keep our focus quite deep and narrow instead of broad. So I think those decisions have become definitely easier. What's also become is a certain discipline which is set in, which is helped keeping those decisions.
You say you
in.
don't see your father all the time. Do you have set times when you check in? Are there meetings that you have with some regularity that allow you to continue to touch base?
So there are a few committees on which we sit together, so we meet for those. And then of course, you know, on the home front, I see them all the time because with 2 grandchildren, my parents are perpetually over, you know, and...
So you see them socially all the time?
Socially, totally. all the
Oh,
time.
okay. Yeah, I think that we thought perhaps you lost touch completely for periods
So
of time.
I see them in a much more casual family setting, and but not so much at work, maybe once a week, twice a week, and it allows a certain, again, flexibility in space.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, I want to thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
sharing
much.
your story with us. So
Thank you.
inspirational. We'll hear more about Roshni tonight, and I think you can see why we honored her. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.